Welcome back. This is Holy Banter, and I'm Christina Steele.
And I'm Andrea Simpson.
And just to let you know, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our parish app.
Awesome. Well, we are here with one of our parishioners, Mary Stahl. She's been a parishioner since after COVID,
Mhm.
and since learned this morning that she is the mom of Sarah Stahl, who I went to school with. So yet again, I am humbled in that I do technically know everyone.
In some ways.
In some ways, yeah, which I love. And that's why we're here, right? To get to know more about our parishioners.
Yes. Yeah.
So thanks for coming, Mary.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So I've gotten to know you over the last few years and really am excited to just have you share your journey of faith with the parishioners. So if you want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing,
Okay.
where you're from, and kind of what your faith life looked like as a child.
I grew up on a farm outside of Union City, Indiana, which is in the far reaches of the Lafayette Diocese. And youngest of four. And like I said, I was on a farm. So our school was a very small town. There were 8 grades over 2 rooms. So there were 4 grades in a room. I had 5 kids in my class.
Wow.
And we had the Sisters of St. Joseph that came there, from
Wow.
Tipton. And
Yeah, so they were at where the retreat center is now.
yes.
Yeah, that's
My
amazing.
sister actually went there for high school. Anyway, it was, the small town, your life revolved around the church, and so we were very involved in it. Both my parents were cradle Catholics and very, very into their faith. So that was just a part of how you grew up, you doing all the things and having it in your home and that kind of stuff. So,
Was it a very Catholic community?
oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you look back on that, it wasn't probably, well, it was a pretty large community actually, and it was very active. And the moms were very active and the families with the school because we didn't have a gym. We didn't have all that stuff. We had a parking lot, so,
Same here.
so, the community of people in the church was really tight. So that was kind of cool.
That
And being in a
is.
small school was cool too.
So you went to high school there as well?
I went to public school
Okay.
there, 92 kids in my class. So again, it was a small
Wow.
Randolph County deal, but um, with 5 kids, going into that, it was like learning all over again, the school thing. It was back in those days and that kind of community. It was a great time.
And then,
Enjoyed it.
and then where did you go for college?
I went to Notre Dame. It was an interesting experience. That was the first year of coeducation.
Wow.
So I was in the first class of freshmen women,
How many women were in that?
125.
Out of how many? Do you remember?
2,000 in a class.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was 8,000.
What was that like?
That was very interesting.
I bet.
Did you have a lot of dates?
No, it was like, well, we had the St. Mary's girls,
Yeah.
also in the mix. So I had a really good experience with it. There were some challenges for the guys, especially I think, because they had no fraternities or sororities there. They still don't. So your dorm was your fraternity, and they had to kick guys out of a couple of dorms to make
Oh.
room for the women and things like that. And there's like 2 girls in a class of 30. So there was some push-pull there socially and everything else, but it was a great experience being on campus and having the basilica right there when you're upset about
Yeah.
something, and there's the chapels in every dorm and midnight mass if you're up studying. The sports were great, all that kind of thing. So
Oh.
Digger Phelps and Era Parsegian and all that stuff. So
What
yeah.
made you choose Notre Dame? Did your faith have a part in that?
My parents had gone on retreat there when they were a young married couple and dreamed of one day sending a son to Notre Dame. Yeah.
I love it.
And my brother did not want to go there. He went to Wabash, actually. And so that was kind of in the mix, too. I didn't personally, we didn't grow up like rah rah Notre Dame or anything. It was just kind of there. So I applied to St. Mary's and because I wanted a small school. It was going to either be that or IU, and I really wanted a small school. And we went up for an interview and talked to someone there, and they said, well, we think we're going to merge with Notre Dame, and so you can put your application in for both or whatever. And then that fell through, and so I did apply to both and was able to
Wow.
for whatever reason, I was one of the selected people to go in,
And
so
what was your major?
finance,
Okay.
which I've never used, so
Right, you know what? I love that.
Yeah. Andrea was a lawyer.
Oh, I
Oh, really?
was for a
Really?
brief time, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did use it for, like, a year and a half
Yeah.
when I write emails.
I was an accountant, so yeah,
Okay,
none of us
okay.
use our degrees.
Oh,
God has a sense of humor,
he
so
does, he does, yeah, so it was a good experience there.
So where did you meet your husband?
At work, at, Blue Cross Blue Shield in Indiana or Indianapolis, I was a fraud and abuse investigator.
I interned at the Attorney General's
Uh-huh.
office in consumer protection, so I did things with
Oh,
the
wow.
medical licensing
Yeah,
board
yeah,
and
yeah. So met him there, and then he was actually a divorced non-Catholic,
Mhm.
and so I ended up leaving there and going into banking, Indiana National Bank, and I was doing IT auditing. They actually called it EDP audit back then. I knew nothing about it, but it was all brand new. This is the thing you have to remember. I'm much older than you. So back in the day, there was nothing going on around security and all that stuff. But I got in at a good time under a person who was very skilled. So I started gathering some skills around IT and audit and that kind of things. And then Indiana National Bank was bought, so all of IT was losing their jobs when National Bank of Detroit came in years later. And then I went on to the lottery, and then I went on to Lilly, and then I went on to WellPoint, and then I retired. But
wow.
all in IT security, which was just a growing field and really became quite a career.
That's pretty remarkable that you didn't study that, you just kinda learned on the job.
But back then,
Yeah.
it was
There were
before
probably weren't
PCs, so I went through the evolution of
Yeah.
PCs coming in, and then you cloud computing.
So did you
Anyway.
have to do a bunch of continuing ed and everything?
Some certification, thing like
Yeah.
that, but it's less learning on the job, I
Wow,
think we
that's
all were kinda
amazing.
learning on the job, so a finance major was able to to get my foot in the door around that, so, yeah.
So you married and then you guys lived in Indianapolis?
Actually, Zionsville.
Okay, so you lived in Zionsville.
Yeah. My doctor was up here, and we were looking for a home in a certain price range at that time, which wasn't out Zionsville wasn't what it is today,
Yeah, it was
obviously. It
rural.
was 1984. Um, so, yeah, we found a home up here and, started having a couple of kids,
So you have
yeah.
2 children.
2 children, Sarah, she lives here in Zionsville with her
Mhm.
2 children, husband, and then my son Evan is in the Detroit area with his wife and daughters, so I have 3 grandchildren,
Mhm.
8, 6, and 4 right now. So, yeah. Yeah.
So what was that time like getting married, having kids, and working and
it's a blur pretty
Yeah.
much, but I was lucky enough. I have a friend who worked at the bank also, who was kind of a trailblazer, I guess I
Yeah.
wanna say, and she was having children at the same time, and she worked in audit as well, and she proposed a part-time team of women who
Oh.
all were in that position. She was doing trust auditing, and, they went for it. So, when I had my oldest, when she was about 6 months old, I proposed the same thing with my management, and they allowed it. So, I worked 3 days a week, 86, and back then, that just was not we were still wearing dresses to work, you know what I'm saying? You know?
You're probably
Yes.
expected to wear dress.
I know,
Mhm.
absolutely. So yeah, so that helped a lot with the whole, workload and family life because my husband at that time was doing a lot of traveling out of town, so yeah.
So marrying a non-Catholic divorcee,
Mhm.
what was your faith like before you met him, and then how did that impact your faith journey?
Well, I always considered myself Catholic, but when I made the decision at 30 to go ahead and marry someone, he'd been married before, so that would have had to have been an annulment,
Mhm.
and he had had a bad experience with the Catholic Church prior, and really I had some respect for it. I won't go into the situation, but it was, I understood. And I was 30 years old and I was kind of ready to get married and, all that. And so we talked to a priest, but we ended up not wanting to involve his ex wife in that situation. So we went ahead and married in a Methodist church. And that was hard for my parents, especially. At that point, I had been going to church after college, but I wasn't as faithful to that. I didn't fall off completely, but I was not in a really good place. At the
Yeah.
same point, I believed in the importance of a family church experience that to really kind of teach our children about. And he was too. He grew up in a Christian church, but it was more me driving that because I think, again, growing up Catholic, still was in there. And, when I told my mom and dad that I was gonna be going to the Methodist church because I wanted my family to go to church together, my mom said, "What do you think God is gonna say to you when you die?" And I said, "Well, I think he's gonna be glad I'm going to church." And that's just kinda how I went with it. So we joined the Methodist church, and actually, that was a really great experience. We got involved in the community
And that was here in
here in
Zionsville?
Zionsville, yeah, and, made great friends. I was involved in music ministry and some other things there. Um, and even after our divorce, we each took them, made sure they were there every week and that kinda thing, and so it was a good experience, and I will have to say it's the first time I'd read the Bible.
Mhm.
I actually went to a 26-week Bible study, and I was like, "Whoa," which we hear that back in the day, we didn't get into it in as much depth,
Yeah.
and it was really, really great. It was a group of women that we had a good teacher, and it was great.
How
I
did
learned
that
a lot.
impact you?
It told me more of the story,
Mhm.
I think it didn't change my love for Christ and all that, but it told me more of the story and who we belong to and how we got here.
Mhm.
So, that was really important.
That's really nice. So
Yeah.
how long were you married before you got divorced?
13 years, and the kids were still at home, so we shared custody and all that, but both still going to church and all of that, and actually after about, I don't know, 3 years, I was asked to do a divorce something. There was
Support group or something?
something, yeah, there was nothing because when we had gone through it, there was no real outreach to us, going
Sure.
through that, and I was like, "I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist." So I met with some who did that kinda thing and just said, "What do I look out for?" And so I just basically it was just a small group of people who have a similar situation that they're going through. And I had some books that had been helpful to me, and so I just had us meet once a week for 6 weeks and did a couple of those kind of things and just have a way that we could, share and be
Right.
support to one another. So,
Were those fellow parishioners at the Methodist church or
mhm.
just anyone in the community?
Actually, it was open to anybody, and one guy came from Lafayette. His sister was at our church, so
Oh,
she told him about it, and so he came
it's
down for
nice.
it. Yeah.
At one point, you had talked about how and I think this was even before you were divorced, that you kind of put up an emotional wall against the Catholic
Yeah, I
Church.
did.
Why is that?
I had gotten flack about not going for his annulment.
From your
And
family?
yeah, and from my uncle priest. I had a priest who was an uncle who was a priest. I think I just had to put up some walls around it. Again, I was embraced by the community that I was in, and
Mhm,
I felt like I was growing in my faith and
mhm.
all that. So, yeah, I kinda had a thing where I'm doing my thing and it's working and all of that.
Interesting,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But there came a time then after the kids were in college, though, and I just started feeling like there's something missing for me, and nothing against what they were doing there,
Mhm,
but I would say today it's liturgy that I missed, you
mhm.
know? I just felt like we have a bunch of really great people who love God and are talking about it, but I missed the Eucharist, I missed ritual, I missed just that the
Reverence?
history and the
Yeah.
reverence. It's like I don't wanna come into church and just be talking about sports and what everybody's wearing, and not everybody's doing that, I'm not
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that 'cause I had a wonderful experience there, but it was the reverence and the sacraments and that kinda thing that
Sure.
was missing, yeah.
And just being able to walk into any Catholic church, right,
Oh,
in the
that's
country and feel like,
or the
"Okay,
world. Yep.
we're" right,
Yeah.
and to feel comfortable and know, "Okay, I know what's coming next.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know what we're gonna talk about now," and the consistency of that.
I mean, I love the feeling of we're part of that large I was just in Italy a few months ago, and again, you're there in the plaza, at the Vatican, and just the universality of the
Mhm.
whole thing is just amazing,
Yeah, you see
and
people of every color and
oh,
language
yeah,
there. It's really
yeah.
it's really
They have to
cool.
repeat the one prayer, like, 8 times so they
Mhm,
can get through all the languages that are
mhm.
there, so
Yeah.
yeah, that was cool. So I felt at that point, the kids were out of the house, and that kinda thing. But I wasn't ready to do the Catholic Church. I
Why
was
is
like,
that?
"That's still, that's not going there," it's like, I didn't really recognize it in retrospect what was driving me out so
Yeah.
much, other than I felt I needed some more depth maybe
Mhm.
somehow, and there was a good preacher leader at the Presbyterian church in town at the time, and I'd heard great things about that. So I thought, well, I'll try that, you know. So I went there for a while, and then things kind of changed there in a big way. And I thought, well, I'm not invested in the history of what's going on here. And so I was like, okay, now where do I go? You know, and but at the Presbyterian church, I joined a small group, and I recommend to anybody, you know, to join small groups. And she happened to be the wife of one of the pastors at the
Oh,
Presbyterian church. And through that, you know, I got to be close friends with her and him and her husband as well, and some other people. And come to find out, I've been going to St. Meinrad just on my own once a year, just no retreat, formal
you
retreat,
might
just
want to
going.
tell people what St. Meinrad is.
St. Meinrad is the seminary in Southern Indiana where a lot of our seminarians go, right?
And it's run by the Benedictine monks.
Yes, and beautiful place. But these ladies, these Presbyterian ladies, went every year to Gethsemane Monastery in Bardstown, Kentucky. They had friends in Tennessee that came up, and they went down, and so they invited me to go with them. I was like, "Well, I've not been to that It's Trappist, and
And
s
Trappists are Catholic, aren't they?
oh yeah, it's
That's
very Catholic.
interesting that they would go down there.
Yeah,
I
why
know.
did they wanna do that?
I don't know. Well, the thing is, if you go down to Gethsemane, and I love Gethsemane, I go every year. I'll be going again during Lent. You have atheists. You have Thomas Merton was at
Mhm,
Gethsemane. If you've ever heard of Thomas
mhm.
Merton, that was his seminary that he went to and was a member of. And so you'll have Hindus and all faiths are down there. I think a lot of it's his influence because a lot of his writings, he reached out to all kinds of faith. And so it's a silent retreat. You're on your own when you go down there. So I say my Presbyterian experience and meeting Laura and Pat was the gift of Gethsemane to
Mhm.
me. Again, as you look back on your travels, your spiritual travels, you kind of see some of these threads, you know, happening.
Mhm.
So that became really important to me there.
And you said something impactful happened on your first trip down there.
Not the first one.
Okay.
So trying to remember when I first went down. I think 2011, and around this time I was wandering, but I had been in a class at the Presbyterian church even after I left that Pat was running, and it was about the journey, your faith journey. It was several weeks. At one point, you kind of mapped out your life and then the different things that were happening maybe in the world and in your family and where you were spiritually. And then at the end of this, and you were in a small group of men and women, you were supposed to write a paper
Oh,
about what you discovered about your journey, you know. So I'm writing this paper before I went back to the retreat house. And I knew I was struggling with the going back to the church. I had been for a while because nothing was landing. But I was still like, no, I'm not going back there. No, not doing it. And so that's kind of where I was at. But
well,
I
why do
just
you think you had that kind of
I don't know. I think maybe it was pride, maybe.
you think you're just really hurt that you
I
felt
was.
rejected by
Yeah,
the
even though I rejected, the
Mhm.
church didn't reject me.
Right.
Um,
Sounds like you thought about it a lot, though,
I
on
thought
your
about it a
journey.
lot, you know, not so much in the years where the kids were home, you
It's hard
know.
to think about anything during that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, and that was, you know, that was their faith life at that point. We were invested in that time
Mhm.
period of my life, but then it was just like, again, something is missing. I don't know what that is, but that ain't it. But again, as I'm writing this, I don't know, 5-page thing or whatever, it wasn't finished, but it was close, and I went down to Gethsemane, and we always go in January at that time, so you get there and it's, you know, dark early, and the monk like I said, it's silent, but the first 2 nights, if you want, you can go to a monk talk for an hour before Compline in the evening, which Compline is
Tell 'em what
amazing.
complaint is.
It's the evening prayer, and they have it, especially in the wintertime when you go in and the church is dark and, you know, it's just candles, but it's evening prayer. It's short, but it's beautiful. They chant, and at the end, you walk up and you get a blessing from the abbot before you go to bed, basically. And, so they would have this talk before that, and this monk one night, he goes and I'd heard him speak before, but he's like and they talk like very kinda, you know, gentle kind of thing, and he's like, "So go to your room, put away your knitting, put away your books. Your room is your place with God. Just be with God. Just don't do anything." nothing. And usually I would go to my room and I'd pull out a book or I'd journal or whatever. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to do that tonight. So got, and the sun was going down outside my window. So I just sat there and I'm just being, and I just felt this go back to the church. And I said out loud in my room, you're not supposed to speak, but I said, no.
Man, you were that adamant. You broke all the
I
rules.
know. And I was like, no, I just don't think that's it. And I went through that about 3 times until finally I said, okay. And it was like, come back, go to confession. No.
What do you think finally made you say, okay?
It was the assurance, I think, in me that I
Oh,
was being called.
because you
Mhm.
kept hearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that over a period of time, or was that
That
just on the retreat?
that was that evening.
Oh, 3 times that evening.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Over probably 3 hours or
Yeah.
so. Yeah. 'Cause I was determined not to pick up a book or anything else, and so it was just silence. Silence is powerful,
Mhm.
And it's not like I heard a voice. It was an urging,
Mhm.
that wouldn't go
I
away.
call it the Holy Spirit
Yes,
nudges.
it is,
Mhm.
and that's really where my relationship with the Holy Spirit really came to the front. After that, I'm always, like, talking to the Holy Spirit. And the other thing about Gethsemane is it has 1,000 acres and lakes and knobs, high hills, and you can just go out, and I'm out there just talking and,
Yeah.
whatever, and praying out there, and everybody is. There's all kinds of space, and it's just a beautiful place. So, anyway, so the next morning, they had one of the monks had confession hours that started at a certain time at this certain room, and I got up there bright and early, and I walked in, I said, "I'm gonna be here for a while, and I'm gonna be crying." He goes, "There's the Kleenex." And
You had a lot of years
I
that
gotta go through a lot of stuff I am sorry for, and I just laid it all out, and he just listened, and I don't even remember the penance he gave me, but it wasn't what you would it wasn't like, give my firstborn or anything like
Yeah.
that. It was, and I walked out of there feeling like a new person.
Wow.
Yeah.
and that was in 2013?
Uh-huh, January 13th. So my friends, at St. Malachy from banking days, she ended up retiring from that and went on to become an adult formation director, and they've been praying for me all the time. And so I called her on the way home and I said, "Well, I'm back." And she said, "Come to dinner." And so that was the start back. So from that point, I joined St. Malachy in Brownsburg.
Because
Eh
that's where she worked.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
how did that feel your first time going into mass at St. Malachy after you decided you were supposed to be there?
It was great. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind at all, and she got me involved in RCIA right then, and the thing, and I would say to anybody in my era, there's so much I didn't know about my faith. With all the education I had through RCIA, just sitting there as a sponsor, as a team member, or whatever, I just learned so much about my faith, and that was a huge gift right there because
Mhm.
several years earlier, she had suggested to me I come to a Catholics Coming Home thing, where they invite Catholics to come back who've been away from the church, and I made it through 3 before I said, "I'm out."
Mm.
I was just, like, not ready, but I come back and I learn all about these beautiful things of our faith and really getting into it and having the joy of watching other people go through that too was great, so
So you said your kids were in college. This was after they had graduated college at this
at
time?
that point, yeah, yeah.
So what was that like with your family changing churches?
Well, my children are not actively attending church, and I think their viewpoint is whatever makes me happy with what I'm pursuing is good. So they're totally supportive of that.
That's great.
And my sister, my only remaining sibling, she was thrilled, obviously, that,
Right.
it came back. And
Were
so,
were your parents still living?
no,
Yeah.
but they were there.
Yeah, they were.
They
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
yeah.
they know.
Finally.
I know, I know. I just started getting involved there, did a few things there, and then COVID hit, and then I was like, "I literally live 5 minutes from St. Alphonsus. I should probably invest in my community."
So you've lived in Zionsville at this point for
Since
30
1984.
some
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Had you ever been to St. Alphonsus before after COVID
Um,
when you joined?
yeah, I
Yeah.
started coming once the church opened up and just kinda come to daily mass and stuff because in 2016, I retired. So somewhere in there, I started being able to do more of that kind of thing, and I just knew I wanted to invest locally, so, um, kinda I got more involved once I retired.
Well, and then we also found out a weird, small world that the couple we interviewed, Matt and Colleen DeRiker, that you were at her table when she went through
Mhm.
our St.
Yeah.
Malachy's.
I heard what they were talking about in their podcast. It was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember that." It was really great to be there with her.
Yeah, because you were there right when everything had happened. What a
Yeah.
small world.
I know, again, Holy Spirit.
Tell us, because you had mentioned just how important your daily prayer life is, kind of what that looks like, how that got started, and why that's so important to you.
I think it really became important when I was going through my divorce because that's kind of the lowest point, in my life at that time. And I had gone through the Bible study at the Methodist Church, and I thought, I've got to find some peace. So I just started getting up earlier in the morning, and it's not like a ton of time, but a half an hour. And I had some books, and I would journal. It kind of reminded me of something someone said once about when you're going out the door to go to work and you peer in the living room and there's Jesus sitting in a chair going, "Have we talked this morning?" I mean, like, I've been waiting. So it's kinda like that he is here, and that just really strengthened me and helped me get my footing back, I guess,
Hmm.
it's like all this noise in your life, and if you can just kinda get centered in the morning, that really helps.
So you just find spiritual books to read and journal and
Yeah, doing some of the Bible study programs and all that,
mhm.
and I started doing some of that here, so that was good too.
So you've
And
done that for quite a few years now?
yeah, I'm a believer in we are called to be in community, and we're the only ones that can do that for ourselves in terms of plugging ourselves in. It's not always easy to do, but we are one
Yeah.
body, right? And so there are so many opportunities to get that we need to
Uh,
to to, put ourselves out there to do that.
And Christina had told me that you've talked about this, how important small groups are in your life. Have you brought that small group to St. Alphonsus as well? Is that
Yeah,
something you carry on here?
I have. Recently, we've decided to back off for a while. We've been together about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So, it started actually, I guess it
when
was
Tom was
when
here.
Tom was here. Yeah, there was a call out over Lent to have a home group. Somebody just hosted Lent, and I thought, "This is another one of those things," where I was like, I don't know. I don't know enough to do that." Or I don't know. What would I do?" And it's like, again, it was the Holy Spirit thing. Just do it. What's the worst that can happen? It can be over. And I end up really enjoying it. And I, in general, think in our society as a whole, we need more home based gatherings. Just, it doesn't have to be anything huge,
Yeah,
but
what does that look like? You said you did it for 3 years, which is amazing. So, what does just a small group at home look like? What kind of things would you do?
well, for Lent or those times of periods, we'll find a Lenten study. We did some video series, Bishop Barron's video
Mhm.
series. Sometimes we would look at the upcoming homily for the upcoming Sunday and do some discussion around that. It was a variety of things, but probably close to half of our time together was prayer concerns and life, just sharing because when it was started, most everybody was new to Zionsville. I was the only one that had been here for a while, but most of them had come in and didn't know anybody. So it became a great place to create friends,
Y
and it did. I mean, just wonderful people, and we know a lot about each other. It's always a very what happens here stays here kind of environment, and a lot of support for each other, and hopefully growing in our spiritual life. And my group in particular helped organize the
Yeah,
library here
they
at
Thank
did.
church.
you for
Yeah,
that.
that was very
So we
helpful.
tried to do a little bit of outreach that ways.
And
Yeah.
speaking of outreach, you're also on the welcome ministry.
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
that like? What do you do for the welcome ministry?
At this point, most of it has been having packets to go to new members when they come. So we get the names and generally who these people are, what their backgrounds are, and then we can go out and provide those gifts and support if they need it, that kind of thing. So we have a lot of people joining every month. So we need people on the welcome ministry to help do that outreach to
Yes,
them.
100%. You can call me
I
anytime as
know.
the new outreach person.
You are the new persons.
So, what makes the welcome ministry so important? It sounds like
Yeah.
maybe you felt like you weren't welcome back. And now, how important is it to you to be back and be able to welcome and create that community?
It's a good feeling. I think a lot of people are waiting to be welcomed, because they don't feel they have the ability to do that on their own. And so just having somebody say, "Hey, we're glad you're here.
Mhm.
Here's some information for you. You have my number. You can call." No one has ever done that, but, it's
The
you're open to that.
invitation's there.
Invitation is there, and just encourage them to get involved in different things, because I know a lot of times people will say in any church, "Well, nobody said anything to me when I came into church." And it's like, but you can say something too, and that's
Mhm.
hard for a lot of people to
Yeah.
do, and you don't always know if you're standing next to someone who's new or not. They could have
Mhm.
been here for years. But do smile, just
Mhm.
we all are welcome ministers, or
Yeah.
should be, right, in that sense, on Sunday mornings.
I want you
Yeah.
to share a story 'cause, um, I think you understand, as you're just saying, kind of that idea of discipleship and how we're called to serve others just in our day-to-day life, just in our encounters. And when you went through my discipleship class, you
Mm.
shared a story in the parking lot at Costco.
Hearing a
All
story.
good stories start in the parking lot at
Well, I just
Costco.
just been in this class, like, that
Y
week, talking about sharing your faith and not being afraid to offer to pray for people or whatever,
Mhm.
and we're all going, yeah."
Catholics don't like to pray with people.
Somebody else can do that.
Exactly.
I know, and I was at Costco, and I was putting stuff in my trunk, and this lady drives up in her car behind me and said, "Excuse me," and started chatting with me, and, of course, I'm thinking what I it's like, "Okay, what's this about?" But she said, "Here's my driver's license. This is who I am." And she said, I'm gonna lose my car." She said, "I've got enough to have a place at night, but I'm gonna lose my car if I can't get," I forget how much it was, $60 or something like that. And in my head, I'm thinking, I need to be more open to the idea that this is not a scam. I mean, 'cause, you know, I think we all can fall into that. It's like, "Is
Yeah.
this for real?" But sometimes does it matter if it's for real or not? I don't
That's what
know.
Mother Teresa says, something like,
Yeah,
Who
you're
cares?
right.
You just
You
give."
just give.
Yeah.
But there was something about her too, though. I thought she was, true truly who she said she was, and I said, "Well, I don't have that," but I pulled my wallet out and I had, I don't know, $30 on it. I said, "You're welcome to this if you want it." And so she took it, and very thankful, and then I thought about the class, and I said, "Would you like me to pray for you?" And she's like, "Yes, I would really like that." And so I stood there with her, and she was in her car, but, said a prayer. I don't remember what it was. And, she thanked me, and off she went. Every time I go to Costco, I wonder if I'm gonna see her again.
You need to put more cash in your wallet.
I've never seen her, though, after that. Who knows? Who knows? Who was she? I don't know. But anyway, so I went back to the class the next week, and I was like, "I think this counts as one of those times," And, I have not done that since,
Mhm.
but I thought about it the other day. I had a missed opportunity. I thought, "That's when I should have said that." So hopefully your reminder to me is now will help me remember before the person goes away. I think you have to err on the side of somebody's gonna say no, or they're gonna look at you like you're nuts and go on about your day, and know that you doing what God's calling you to do,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't feel comfortable.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that includes in our church. And it's like there's, people that may look like they don't wanna be disturbed, and maybe they don't, you
Mhm.
just, you follow your heart on that. But I think we kinda have a responsibility as members of the body of Christ to try to outreach a little bit.
Yeah. Be welcoming and smile.
Outreach. Yes, more
I know.
outreach.
When you think about your whole journey of faith, like we said, there was a prayer that you like to pray.
It's take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, my entire will, all that I have and possess. Thou hast given all to me. To thee, O Lord, I return it. All is thine. Dispose of it according to thy will. Give me thy love and thy grace, for that is sufficient for me. And the first time I read that, I thought, not sure I want to say that.
And it's Suscipe, and it's by Saint Ignatius of Loyola.
Loyola. And I don't even remember where I first saw it, but I thought that's powerful because you are saying everything is his. And so after that, I tend to say that before I receive communion and after I receive communion. And I'm like, Lord, I'm giving you everything. You're going to have to give me the strength to do that in
Mhm.
times when I don't want to. But I think that's what we're called to do. And I'm not good at it all the time. He doesn't expect us to be good at it all the time.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say he honors our striving.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, we're not perfect, obviously, in this life.
I just think it's amazing that you're able to be here and feel comfortable and feel at home here, but still see those threads, right? Those Holy Spirit threads, the way God's worked in your life.
And I
And
know he's around all the
yeah,
time.
and to be able to say that know where you're supposed to be.
Mm.
That's a great feeling to have.
It is. It is.
And even now, she's kind of backing out of some stuff
Mm.
because you want to reflect on the Holy Spirit and where he's
Mhm.
kind of calling you next,
Mhm.
which is
Exactly.
what there's wisdom in that.
And I know he will,
Yeah.
you know?
But not outreach.
Oh, I can't back out of outreach.
Never.
No intention to do that.
And so you said there's a saint that you particularly feel called to or kind of revere, or
Uh,
a couple.
yeah, well, Mother Mary, of course, Saint Therese of Lisieux is my confirmation saint.
And why do you feel called to Saint Therese of Lisieux?
The little flower, the little way. We think we have to produce big fruit all the time, and, I think it was in her book where she talked about reflecting on being carried by her father in real life, and so she didn't have to work to see the stars because he's holding her up so she can look at the creation, right? And I think we always think we have to do that work, and we do have work to do, but he's over all of that, so I just love that
Yeah,
idea with her.
I really like Saint Therese as well.
And I like Saint Monica and Saint Augustine for their praying for folks that aren't in church right now, so
Yeah,
yeah. So, we have a whole cadre, a whole books full of saints to go
Right?
to, so
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Lots
yeah.
of good ones.
Well, I always love your story. I think there's a lot of Catholics who have similar stories, so it's
Mm,
nice to get your story
It's
and how
good to
you
be
came
here
back.
and being brave enough to share and pray for people at Costco.
I know.
That's
Even if they're not in the store. Maybe in the store we should be praying that people aren't buying too much, I don't know. Well,
well,
thanks for all you guys do.
yeah, it was wonderful to meet you,
You
Mary,
too.
and I can't wait to work with you more soon.
I bet.
She's really pushing the
I
outreach.
know. Something, so
Yeah.
now she's No, it's great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.